Hi, everyone. Welcome to Parenting in the Trenches. I am Dr. Tanya Farron, co-host of tonight, along with Dr. Mispa.
Hey, good afternoon, Dr. Tanya. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, actually. It's been a while since we had our Parenting in the Trenches
Yeah.
episode and that's partly my fault. It's my fault because I was gone for almost 6 weeks.
There's no fault in being gone for 6 weeks. That's a good thing. That's okay. I was ready for a break. It's all right. We all need a break every now and again. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad to be
I
back.
encourage everybody to take breaks as well. We work so hard throughout the day in and day out. I was gonna say throughout the year, but like we work hard in life.
Yes.
Period. It's never ending. It just the hard work looks different, right, in certain parts of our lives, but we're always showing up for the world, showing up for our loved ones, showing up for our colleagues, showing up at work, right, that we
Mhm.
don't take enough time to really show up for ourselves. So with that, of course, our Parenting in the Trenches series is about what? It's about our parents and our
Mhm.
kids, right? So today's topic I'm very, very, very thrilled about because I think it needs attention. It needs attention. Um, and I'm thrilled to be able to talk about it right when we're going into the holiday season too, because there's a lot of family dynamics that play out during the holiday season that are ongoing throughout the year, but they boom, they all come together,
Absolutely.
right? So let's get started. Dr. Tanya, we are talking about evolving with age today. Evolving with age. And I'm wondering if anybody has any thoughts about what that means in the audience.
Yeah, evolving with age in the audience. Thank you, Christy, for joining us tonight. Anybody else that's here, drop in your name, give us a hello, and go ahead and drop in. What does evolving with age mean to you when you think about parenting?
Mhm.
If I'm thinking about it, I think there's a couple of different ways that you can look at it. I think there's two perspectives. There might be more than two. The two perspectives that I come up with is as a parent, you're
Mhm.
parenting as you evolve in your
With
age
age.
and your maturity, and your child
Mhm.
evolving in their age. I think there's two different ways to look at it.
Yeah, and both of those ways are intertwined, right? Like
Mhm.
there's the piece of your own journey as a parent as you're growing. There's the piece of your child's growth, like you mentioned. And then I think the thing that's important is also like how other siblings or other children play into that journey too, how your family dynamics play into that journey, because your growth as a single parent versus a two family household, but even as living in a blended family system, will look very different in your parenting, but also in you evolving with age and time as well, because your resources are going to be different.
Absolutely. They definitely are. And that's something that we're going to get into when we really start kind of dissecting this evolving with age, though, is digging into, I like to call it that parenting village, those people that are in your circle. And it could be your family, it could be your friends, it could be, people at your church,
Mhm.
place of worship, lots of different places. So we'll get into talking about some of that. So I want to welcome Natalie Thomas. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi,
We,
Natalie.
yeah, and then as well as Bree, thank you for being here.
Thank
Appreciate
you for
that.
joining us.
Yeah. So
All
what do
right.
you
Well,
yeah, what do you think about evolving with age?
who, me?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just going to say it's a unique journey. Evolving with age, I think that, we're talking about parents. Of course, Yet I think a lot of this work is also internal. So when we think about evolving with age, there's a piece of us that's evolving and growing, hopefully in positive ways, which then ties into our identities as a parent as well. So the more you work on yourself as you evolve and grow and change, it's going to impact how you're showing up as a parent as well. Right. So I think in setting the stage up for tonight's episode, right, I think it's really important to start from scratch. Right. There's different stages of parenting. And Dr. Tanya, you have your book, right, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, where you have divided it into different stages, right? Where we're talking about the early years, the teen years, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we need to kind of go back and start talking a little bit about preparation and what that first stage looks like for people as we go through the stages of development in evolving with our age as parenting.
Right. Absolutely. One of the things that the very first chapter in my book is that parenting is a lifetime commitment. And so I wrote that chapter for people who are, starting to think about having a family, and not everybody gets the opportunity to start to think about having a family. Some people are blessed with children unexpectedly at different ages. You'll hear a lot of people say that I grew up with my kids. Some people who are teen moms or young people who are having children may be growing and evolving with their kids a little bit more than someone who might be 40 years old having their first child. And so, that's going to be a little different. But I wrote that chapter, parenting is a lifetime commitment, for the reason that, I wanted people to really start thinking about what parenting was like even before they became a parent. And so that's where my book begins. And I'll just flash a little book cover here for people to see if I can. I guess my overlay is not working. There it is. This is the cover of my book. It's on Amazon. So as we refer to it and reference it, you can check it out there. But I do think that piece is important, is going in and learning a little bit about parenting even before you become a parent, if you're able to do that. Some of you that are joining us are in the midst of it, but we are going to go in and talk about those different stages. I do go into the early years, which are those, prenatal even can be times when parents are expecting their children, infancy, when their kids are that age, the things that they're needing and that they're doing is a little bit different. I always say that, when my kids were little, when the children are little and they're infants, they physically need you. They literally require you to hold them, to nurture them, to hug them, to change their diapers, to feed them. You are nurturing them. You are having to care for them 24/7. And so I say that, when they're little, they need you physically. And when they're older, they need you emotionally. And so that's just kind of a piece that starts when your kids are evolving and you're having to adapt to some of those changes in their life. So I think there's a lot of pieces for that early years for people to start thinking about.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I think for when you're talking about the early years or even the beginning stages of envisioning you as a parent, right? There's a lot of cultural nuances there as well, right? Like some cultures, it's like once you get married, the next step is to have kids. If you don't have kids, something is wrong. Okay, like you get married to have kids, right? So you kind of go into this parenting journey of yours knowing that this is what life is about, right? And then there's other aspects where people take their time, right? They have a plan. Okay, we need to do A, B, and C before we get married. And once we get married, we want to enjoy our time together as a couple. We want to develop a foundation. And once that foundation is developed and we check off these boxes, then we want to have children. So in kind of tying this together, regardless of whether you have this way, or another way, the first stage is image making. Okay. So we are setting the stage for thinking about what kind of parent we will be and what does parenting actually look like. And that encompasses a lot of different things. And one of them is how you were parented.
Absolutely.
What did you learn from your own parents? What did you learn to do and what did you learn not to do, right? So you're actually visualizing it in your parenting journey in terms of what that would really look like.
Honestly, most people, that is their only example of parenting. That is the only model that they use. And so I encourage people to step outside of that, but that is your first model. That is your only model that you have most of the time. And so you are, you may take from it and say, I'm not going to do this from that model, or I am going to do this from that model, and, there's no perfect model. Because each child is going to respond a little bit differently to that. I want to also say, when you started talking about the variety of choices people are making, whether they feel the need to have children right away or they feel the need to wait, like there's a lot of social pressures for people as well on having a child, and families can push a lot of pressure on kids and other people. I say kids because I have 2 daughters that are in their 20s, but families can put a lot of pressure on people about having a family. And honestly, if people aren't ready, they shouldn't do it. It's really just that. So make sure that you're knowing that, thinking about that. What type of life, can you provide for them? And again, remember that second stage is nurturing, like I was talking about. Definitely. You're nurturing a child. And it is a 24/7 responsibility. And that is where a lot of our attachment comes from. Healthy attachments can be from that nurturing piece. Children need that love and affection and touch and, talking to them, having their needs met, their basic needs met. This is when all of our basic needs begin in this part right here.
Yeah. And ideally, when we're thinking about becoming parents, right? Again, we all thrive to want to be the best parents. Nobody ever says, hey, I'm going to be a horrible parent.
No.
Everyone says, I want to be the best parent, and I want to be the parent that I never had. Or the parent that, or I want to parent differently because this didn't work for me when my mom and dad or, my caregiver did this, right? Yet I think parenting is one of those things you can't test it out until it's in front of you.
Yes.
Unless you have nieces and nephews or, you're a foster parent and you can just be like, oh, here, take this kid back, right? Parenting is one of those things where you don't get a trial run and then you just send the kid back. And there's only so much preparation that you can do with parenting.
It's
you can
true.
Read all the books, right? You can have all the safeguards measures in place. You can learn about nutrition. You can, take prenatal vitamins. You can do all the right things that researchers and books and everything, people tell you, experts. Yet when the time comes, it's a wow moment. Like what just hit me?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is why we call it the parenting journey, right? Like the journey in itself, you can prepare for it, but you really can't because you don't know what's ahead of you. You can propose or you can think about what may be ahead of you, but you really can't calculate every single thing that's going to come your way. Which is why that community and that village is really, really important. A lot of times we forget that. We forget, like, okay, we have mom and dad, right? Or another form of caregivers, but we need more than just us.
It agreed. And, I was just in a conversation yesterday with Erica Spring. We just had our parent to parent conversation, and it was our second session of doing parenting a special needs child. And, we didn't know we were going to be parents of special needs children. We didn't know that. That was nothing I could prepare for. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And special needs is a range, right? There's a range. And, in fact, my daughter's not officially labeled special needs. However, she does have special needs and is medicated and, has, needs. And so you don't know that. You don't really know what you're going to get. So you can, like you said, Dr. Q says, you can plan all that you want, but it is a journey and it is trial and error. It is learning. It is taking time to get to know other people, finding out things, coming to events like this, listening to these events so that we can help guide you on this journey, and we can bring people on. We've got people coming soon, but we can bring other people on to help you, give you new perspectives, have you learn a thing or two.
Yeah, perspectives is really important. I think our perspectives in parenting guide how we move. And with the work that I do, at least with families, I have seen that when we're tied to a perspective, right, and we're unwilling to be flexible, that can cause a discord, right? That can cause a disconnect as a parent to your child. And again, I think if we talk about the early years, Dr. Tanya, you had mentioned, the second stage is nurturing, right? That's usually till 2 to 3 years old, right? You're really focusing on attachment. You're really focusing on nurturing, being loving, caring, touch, feel, right? And then when your child is getting older, right? Some of those needs are still there. They're never going to change. But there's other needs that become more significant as well. And as a parent, you have to be able to not only practice patience, but also be flexible to know that it's time for me to shift and change in this area. So when we move on to stage 3, which is, stage 3 is authority. What does that mean? It means this is when your child starts forming understanding of their personality, their identity. They have a voice, right? They can say things that you don't want them.
Like, no.
No,
I'm not
going
really fast.
No, I'm not going to eat this. No, I'm not going to wear this. I like this. I don't like this.
And this is where, right, we start to clash, right? They call it the terrible 2s. I called it more the terrible 3s. I thought the 2s were pretty funny. But, they call it that because I was in charge. You were an infant. I picked you up. I carried you here. I moved you here. I dressed you with this. I fed you this. I did all of these things. And now you have a personality. Now you're starting to know what you want. In that stage 3, and now we're getting a little bit of a clash. Like, wait a minute, I'm the parent here. I'm the one that makes the decisions here, and we've got a little one saying, "No, I'm not eating that. No, I don't want to go. No, I'm not interested in that. I'm going to throw a temper tantrum on the floor. I am going to roll around and see if that changes things. I'm going to clear the table off with my arm and see what happens with that." Right?
A lot of testing.
A lot of testing.
And rule breaking.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think in this stage, we're talking about the kids, and I think it's important to mention the parents too, right? I think this is also the stage where you are understanding yourself better and what kind of parent you are, what kind of parenting style you have, and also like what needs work.
Right.
Are you the disciplinarian? Right? Who's playing good cop, bad cop? Even though I think everybody should be good and bad, right? Or let's just forget the dichotomy, right? Let's not even use good cop, bad cop. Let's just use both parents as understanding parents,
it's
right?
Partnership. It's partnership.
Yes. But this is where your identity, you are also as a parent starting to feel more confident in the way that you're taking care of your kid. So you also say no. You are going to go to school tomorrow. No, this is the uniform. You need to wear this.
That's right.
No, put your shoes where they belong.
That's right.
You got to eat your vegetables, right?
Yes.
It's the testing phase.
That's what I mean, right? Now we're clashing, right? We're testing, we're clashing. And you as the parents, this is where hopefully in lifetime commitment chapter, you've started thinking about some of the things that you might want to discuss before all of these things evolve in life with your child. But this is where you have to talk together and say, and we don't want to be good cop, bad cop. We don't want them to know that mom says no, but dad's a pushover. Dad says no, mom's a pushover, right? We want partnership. We want, shoot, mom and dad both said no. Mom and dad both said yes, right? And so that's a communication piece between partners in a relationship that they have to determine, where are we standing our ground? Are we both okay with them climbing on the chair over there on the back of the couch? Mm-hmm. No, we're not. Okay, then we're both going to say no. Or are we both okay with them coloring over here on the floor? Like, you have to kind of, a few things like that, work it out together and talk about it, because they're checking it out. They're trying that authority. They're seeing what they can get away with. It's the beginning.
Yeah. And I think it's important to realize, like, at every stage of development as a parent, you have to be like very cognizant and reflective on how you're showing up in the ways that it's not healthy per se, right? Like, am I enabling certain behaviors? Am I reinforcing things in a way that it's healthy? Am I being punitive versus actually disciplining in a way where my child has consequences? And that is consistent at any age. Sure. Right? Especially when they're a minor, right? At 18, 20, like, that's a whole different story. We'll get into that, later.
We're still evolving.
We're still evolving, and, listen, we're still evolving, and, adulthood, whatever that means, right? In different cultures, is a whole different topic we can discuss, right? But like, consequences, right? Is this consequences or is this punishment? Whether the child is 2 years old, 4, 6, or 13, right? We want to move away from punishment and deal with consequences of behaviors. But are we also reinforcing it? Mm-hmm. How are the consequences? How were my consequences managed by my parents? Am I reflecting on that? Did it help? Okay, didn't help. Why am I doing it?
You said a key word. Am I reflecting on it? A lot of times parents, because this is how we were parented, this is how we're going to parent our kids. And so then, the important piece is that word reflective, reflecting on that and saying, did that work for me? Was that effective? Probably not. It was more punitive. I didn't learn from it. It made me more angry, right? Like things like that. So what could I do differently to be able to, manage that? So I just want to take a minute here. Thank you, Nick, for joining us and all of your great comments. I love this. The angry look from her son when she put him in the corner for time out. She had to run away so he wouldn't see her laughing, right? They are cute, but we can't let them see it. I love that. And then agreeing that parents show up a united front and not undermine each other. That is so important. That
even if they disagree, that's the thing, right? Like, if you disagree and your co-parent messed up or like just did not manage the situation well, it is not the best time to call your co-parent out,
right,
in front of your kid, because what's going to happen is that kid is going to come around and be like, you can't do this right anyway. I shouldn't listen to you because mom or dad said so.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
I actually have a family right now where one of the kids tells mom, can you tell dad to stop? He's annoying me.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And the dad is giving directions. I mean,
right.
Is he a little too involved, or like, is he repetitive? Is he doing it in ways that's not effective, which is why the child is not listening? But for the child to say, hey, mom, can you tell dad to stop? Right? That just shows that the child has learned he can go to mom. And then if he goes to mom, mom's going to redirect dad because mom may have done it before in front of them.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
So you also want to be aware of that.
Yes.
Leave it for pillow talk.
That's right.
Right?
Yes. Atul, thanks for joining us also. And Linda Meyer, thank you. Lisa Fevick, thank you for being here. Jamie, nice to see you. Appreciate everybody here. And Christine, thank you so much for joining us. United Front. Talk in private. I will say that my kids knew that if it was a big decision and my husband and I needed a minute, we would walk out of the room and go into our bedroom and have a conversation. That didn't mean that we always agreed on it, but we agreed to come to a consensus together. He may not have agreed with what I was deciding, and I said, I need your support on this. I might not have agreed what he was deciding, but I knew there were some give and takes. And then we would walk out as a united front and say, we both said no, or we both said yes, you know, whatever it might be. And so really important to do that. But again, right, we're looking at that authority age, that age of 2 to 5. We're teaching our kids some things that they're evolving with also, like, you know, how far, like, you know, remember when they're 2, they're playing in the kitchen while you're doing the dishes. Maybe when they're 3, they're in the family room while you're doing the dishes, right? Where's your level of supervision? That evolves also with your kids. You know, when can they go outside and play for 10 minutes by themselves, or in the basement, or, you know, at a friend's house? Like, those things start to evolve also with age of our kids, that supervision that we have, giving them that independence, a little at a time, that starts evolving with age. So that's something also to be thinking about at that point. You want to go into stage 4?
So with that, I think we can move on to stage 4, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we can spend, again, we can do a series on each one of these, right? But moving on to stage 4 is interpretive. What does that mean? These are the elementary school years. And maybe Dr. Tanya, talk about from your book, the elementary school years.
Yeah.
What does that look like in this stage?
Right. So, you know, our children go from really being home allotted, really being with us, to going into the elementary years. And they're, you know, they start having friendships. They start building relationships with other children. They start piquing some new interests. They might want to join some clubs. They're in band or choir or starting orchestra, some type of event like that. You know, they might start some extracurricular sports. They might have coaches or leaders or teachers. Yeah. So they're starting to, you know, branch out a little bit more with their experiences, and they're getting exposed to that world outside of their family, right? And so that's a lot of time for us to really start getting to know our kids also, and having conversations. So at my place of work, we just had cyber crimes unit come in and talk to families about safety. And their biggest point was keeping open lines of communication open with your kids. And this is definitely where it starts. I mean, you should always be having conversations with your kids, but once we're getting into these elementary years, they're away from us a lot. We're not watching everything that they're doing all the time. So we need to have those conversations and ask open-ended questions. You know, tell me about your day. What happened at lunch today? Who did you sit with? You know, things like that, to start learning a little bit more about that interpretive year.
Yeah. And I think this is the point where, you know, your attachment, it changes too, right? This is when your child is being introduced to the world outside, like you said, outside of the home. So they're very curious. And some kids, obviously, they're going to have anxiety, separation anxiety, right? And this is how, as a parent, how you manage that and how you introduce the world to them so that they can interpret it in positive ways, right? And knowing that bad things can happen. So we have to be very cautious. We have to have a plan. You know, this is what you do if I'm running behind, right? This is how you cross the road, which is why there's school buses and crossing guards, right?
Yes.
When your child gets out and sees a world beyond the walls of the house and the primary relationships. And in that, what's important to note is tap into your own attachment and your relationship with your kid too, because we do become one. Like, your entire life changes when you become a parent.
Oh my gosh, 100%.
And then,
Yeah.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No.
And then slowly it changes some more because now your child is getting older,
Yeah.
right? They're becoming their own little person with a little sassiness, and like they have their own expression and vocabulary and the slang for the decade.
Well, and and they're not needing you so much.
Yes.
They're not needing you so much. So as a parent, we're evolving to what is my role now? Now, what is my role? My role is changing. I went from literally physical caregiver 24/7 to more of a nurturer at 2 to 3 to 4 years old. And now they're out, and now our lessons are different, right? How
Yeah.
do you handle a grade that isn't the grade you wanted? How do you handle a friendship? How do you handle a bully in school? How do you handle technology safety with your kids? Like, all of those things are changing and evolving, and my role is changing, and my kiddo isn't needing me as much. They don't want me to hug them goodbye. They don't want to kiss me goodbye. They don't run into my arms when I see them like they did in preschool. So those things are changing for us as parents. I remember when my mom always came over to say goodbye to the kids on the first day of school. Both of my mother-in-law and my mom always said goodbye to the kids on their first day of school with me. And when my youngest went to school, I cried. I just sobbed. And my mom says, well, what do you want me to do? Should I stay? And I'm like, I want you to leave. I want to mop my floor, and I want to cry about this, that this part of my life is over with her. Now because I already knew the oldest one was already in school. I knew what that looked like. I knew what that felt like. But now I knew I was never going to have these moments again. And so kind of grieving that part of our life also as we're evolving to the next stage and phase with our kids is also something that we go back and look at that relationship and think, I'm never going to have those moments again like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. God, you just hit a nerve.
Oh.
I'm like, oh my God. It's hard. It's
hard
giving. Oh my God. And I want to say, there's something fun about not having some of those responsibilities either.
100%. I agree.
I get tired of changing diapers and wiping butts
and carrying the diaper bag and the formula.
Yes.
We can run through McDonald's now, or
yeah. So like, there's a level of relief when your child is becoming independent and doing things where they don't need you as much. So there's a relief part to it. And then the other piece is also like the parenting shifts in the sense that, like, depending on your work situation, if you're a stay-at-home mom versus a mom that worked right through, right? So some of you caregivers, and I just want to say, not just mom, but like anybody who's raising a kid, you may be going back to work.
Sure.
So it's a transition for you. So now, not only are you the parent, but now you're a working parent. That is another evolution. Like, you evolve as a working parent. What if you and your co-parent separate or divorce? Then you are a co-parent versus a dyad family. Like, imagine the growth that needs to happen in your own parenting journey, given the circumstances of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it all changes, your life is evolving and changing, and there are unexpected things that are going to happen, and there are expected things that are going to happen. And it is a definite journey. And that's why we have this for everyone, so we can be a part of this together and be this support for one another. So I love this conversation. Absolutely love it. Mm-hmm.
So with that, stage 5, what do we have? Those are the adolescent years, okay? The stage 5 is interdependent.
It is. And yes. And so this is when they're really, we were talking in elementary, they're starting to branch out, but now in middle school, they're branching out even further. They're going to after school activities. Their social friends are wanting to hang out together, hang out longer. They want to stay up later. Those types of things, sleepovers. And then we've got relationships with kids, right? Amongst other kids, like boyfriend and girlfriend, girlfriend and girlfriend, boyfriend and boyfriend, whatever the relationship pairing may be. We then have these changes that are coming at us, and how do we as parents, we're always having to think one step ahead. And so I love that part of my book. I'm just going back to that in the back. There's planning pages for you to start planning when these things are happening in your life, to be able to go in and say, my kiddo, reflecting and saying, my kiddo is changing. What do I need to do differently now? And, maybe you and your partner of parenting has conversations. What is the curfew going to be like?
Yeah.
How many friends are we going to allow them to have over? How many days are we going to allow them to be with their friends? How are we going to handle when they want to be in a relationship? What are our thoughts? Like, there's so many pieces to really start thinking about. And sometimes life comes at you very quickly, and you're not ready for it. And sometimes you have to think pretty fast on your feet. And so it's also the times when they're testing you.
Yeah.
They're testing you. They're going to see if they're going to try what their friends are doing. They may, start some habits that they shouldn't be starting. They might be dishonest with you. They're having peer pressure that's even stronger than it's ever been for them. There's a lot of things, and they're needing you to be there and be ready for them, be available for them. And they're looking for boundaries. They are looking for boundaries. I know people think that they are not, and they want to just let their kids do whatever they want. I am telling you, I have had children sit in my office crying if they've been suspended for the fact that their parents are not going to care. My parents are not going to care. I will not receive one consequence for what I did today. And they are sad about it. They are wanting boundaries. They want structure. They want to know that you care enough about them.
Yeah. Even if they're violating boundaries, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so when you find your child violating boundaries or breaking rules, and this is something we don't do often, because naturally as a human, we are trained, or just innately we're able to deflect and like point fingers versus looking internally, right? So when your child is breaking rules, not following boundaries, the first question that should come to our mind is, how have I contributed to this? How did it get to a point where my child thinks it's okay to be disrespectful? How did it get to a point where my child believes that boundary is okay to break? Or that rule should be thrown out the window? Like, how did it get there? And sadly, the answer lies in how we have moved as a parent. Whether it's not honoring our own boundaries. A lot of times parents say, and they laugh and giggle, like especially in sessions, it's like, do as I say, not as I do. And then they'll be joking around, and I'll be looking at them, and I'm like, that's exactly, I mean, how do you expect your child to listen to you? You're literally saying, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but when I tell you to not do the thing that I am doing, like, you need to listen to me.
Yeah.
Talk about mixed messages, right? Like, you're confusing me as your therapist. I can't imagine with your child. Your child lives in the household with you, and I'm like, as your therapist, like, dude, this is not working.
Right. Our children are always watching us, right? We are their first teacher. So if we are doing it, they're most likely going to be doing it. And so you have to remember that as being a role model in your family with your kids. And, we're also teaching them like our values and our morals as they're growing up. We're, taking them to our place of worship or not worship. And those are the values and morals that they're going to instill in their life as they're moving forward. Now, they're going to change as they go on. They'll find other things down the road that they may like better. But this is their core. Like, this is their foundational pieces. This is where they're going to take the information moving forward to make decisions. That's why the book is called The Well-Adjusted Child. It's not a perfect child. It's a well-adjusted. Our goal is to get our kids to be well-adjusted, to be able to handle what life throws at them. And so we're molding them even in these years. This is the year where we don't let off the gas, parents. These are the years we don't say, oh, they're 15, they're almost an adult. Nope. We need to keep applying the gas in our parenting. We're not letting off when they're 16. We're not letting off when they're 17, when they're 18. They're still being molded. So keep the gas going on them for sure.
Yeah. So Nick right here has made a comment that I think is very important to note, which ties into
Is
the
it this
molding
one?
piece. Yeah. I've seen parents who hover. I actually feel that hurts young kids. They can't establish any type of independence. So Nick, thank you for saying that, because what you're describing here is what most people call helicopter parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're all
Yeah.
And it's ineffective. Okay. Do I think it's needed sometimes? Yes. But does it work? No.
No.
You see, this is where you have to find a nice balance of give and take, right? But also something that's earned. It's a reward for showing up the way that you need to show up for the betterment of you and your well-being, right? So one of the things, again, there's just a certain simple formulas, right? Which are, one of them is, there's no parent out there who doesn't want the best for their child. I've never met a parent who does not want the best for their child. And that could be the worst parent ever too. Every parent wants the best for their child. So you have to really think about how am I navigating the way that I've moved or lived my life, right? In implementing some of the things that, let's say, were mistakes for me, right? Because kids do come around and be like, well, I know you're not talking. I know when you were younger, you were smoking weed. I mean, if they know even a little bit about your history and your experiences, they throw it right at you, right back at you. Because and then you're like, well, I didn't do it like you did. You guys are smoking all the time. We did it recreationally. So I think this is where, your communication is really important, but your connection too. And then being able to break down why you're asking them to do something. The answer should not be because I said so.
Correct.
Why is this not healthy for you?
Back to the communication piece.
Mm-hmm. And the breaking down of logical. We all listen to logic, right? People are curious. We're curious. We want to know why we can't do something, especially something that looks fun.
Right. Like, what are the real effects of this, right? This is the cause. This is the effect, right? This is our natural consequence for this. You do illicit things, you're going to deal with the law. I mean, that is just life, right? And so those are times where, as parents in that stage 5, that we can't solve all of their problems, but we can guide them. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to just refer, you can go in and check on LinkedIn to Erica Spring, go look at her page. She just created a little poem. Yesterday when we were talking, she was talking about, as our kids get older, we just become the lighthouse, the beacon of light to shine the guiding light to them. And I loved that phrase because, we're not walking with them with the flashlight. And she wrote this little poem today. It's great. So go in and check it out, Erica Spring. But we are the lighthouse. We're guiding them. And so we're guiding them with, this could be a potential consequence. This could be the potential problem, really being open. I'm not telling you no to not go to this party because I'm trying to be the mean mom. Yeah. I'm telling you no because I already know this student has been in trouble, or this child has been in trouble with this, or I already know the parents are not going to be home. I'm concerned about your ACT test that you have to take tomorrow morning. Whatever the reason may be, having that conversation and really explaining yourself to them. And this is another thing too, when we talk about consequences, this is a hard part for parents. when we punish our kids or we give them a consequence for their behavior or their actions, we are punishing ourselves too. And you have to be ready for that. We are also, and I say that for the fact that, like, if we're telling them there's no TV in the house, guess what? We're not watching TV either.
Yeah.
If we tell them that they can't leave and we take then we take the keys, or we kind of are supervising them to make sure they're not leaving. Like, there's certain things like that we are going to be required as parents to continue to supervise. So and the reason I say this, be cautious of the consequences you bestow upon them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do it in anger and we do like this huge long thing that it's not even going to work. You're going to be grounded for 9 months. Okay, is that going to really work? They're 17. They have to have a job.
How are you going to implement that? Can you please let me know?
Yeah, you're angry right now. Step away. Come back with the consequences tomorrow. Tell them for tonight you're staying in your room. I'll take your phone. I'll take your keys. And then in the morning, I'll give you a consequence. You'll know what the rest of it is. And sometimes having that conversation with them and saying, what do you think your consequence should be? Sometimes they select a more stringent consequence than you would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Listen, it's a far cry from the conversation of mopping the floors, crying when she went to school. Now I'm grounding her and taking her keys.
Yeah, no, I mean, consequences are very, very important, and they need, like, and I think we lose focus on this because, discipline is hard. It's very hard, right? Especially nowadays, Dr. Tanya.
Yes.
I mean, every strategy that I've heard of, every consequence, it's like, I'm taking your phone away. You can't have screen time. You can't. And I'm like, sometimes taking those things away as a consequence is also is a disservice to you too. Right?
You're punishing yourself. That's what I'm saying. My husband one time called me and said, please give her phone back. I can't find her at school. Let's find something else.
Yeah, right. So
I'm trying to pick her up.
Right. So I think what needs to happen is you have to look at whether the consequence is age appropriate, right? Are we teaching the lesson that we're trying to teach? And I think people lose sight of that. We automatically, I think for consequences, we automatically go to taking away something.
Yes.
Right? But what if we give them something? Right?
Girl.
What if they don't value money, right? Or something happens and they stole their siblings' money or something. Like, what are you going to do? Not give them money the next week? Yeah, you could do that. Or you could go tell them, hey, go volunteer and run some registers and see how you feel. Right? Yeah. Go do some volunteer work. Add something as a consequence versus taking it away. Because then you're also teaching a life skill.
Well, and that's what I actually was coaching another parent this week, and the same thing. I said, do a book study. Go pick out a book on the topic that we were discussing and have them the consequences that when they're finished reading it and writing you X number of paragraphs about it and you approve it, then their consequence is over, but they've learned something, right? They've learned something. Isn't that our goal? Is that when we give them a consequence, they learn. Oh my gosh, we could do a whole segment on this. We'll probably will one day, but anyhow, that's independent, right? There's a lot more that comes to it, right? We talked about that, or that's interdependent, but we talked about that authority at 2 to 5. Well, then they're really breaking out of their shell here in high school. They're really stretching the boundaries. They're really trying to see who they are. What do they like? What do they not like? Kind of what social category are they in life? And what do they want to be when they grow up? And then there's a lot of stress and pressure. So that definitely adds to parenting and needing that communication piece and that talking to your kids, which is where I went from physically needing you at a young age to emotionally needing you. They are emotionally needing you. They need you to be available. You need to put your device down, Mom. You need to come home from work sometimes early to handle a situation. You may have to go up to the school. Those are things that are probably going to happen. They're going to need you.
Yeah. I mean, again, we've talked about this, right? Our parenting journey as we evolve and grow. There's no time, right, where your child does not need you.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's their physical presence, right? Like, that there's a need there in terms of just knowing my parent is physically there, even if they're ill and bedbound.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when we're talking about this, I want to make sure that we honor the experiences of individuals who actually have experienced grief and loss of parents as well, whether it's through death, whether it's through addiction, whether it's through abuse, right? So the topic that we're talking about in terms of evolving and growing, we are talking about, let's just say, average healthy families where you can do the work. Our topic today does not cover traumas, does not
Correct.
cover parent-child relationship where there is trauma and abuse. That's a whole different segment of what parenting looks like and how do you manage and deal with that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
today we are specifically talking about healthy dynamics that just need let's say a little nudge, right? We're learning and we're growing, we're evolving, right? Where this does not include addressing mental health issues. This does not include like a parent that may be sick and you end up becoming a caregiver. We are just
Correct.
talking about normal, which to me doesn't exist, but I want to definitely make that note as well.
I know what you meant. I agree. What is normal, but I know what you meant. You know, we're not looking at extreme extenuating circumstances in family dynamics at this point in time, because there are those. But we're looking at just kind of typical average,
or what we think the ideal dynamics would be.
Correct.
Family,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Yeah. Yes. And then stage 6, you know, this is the part when my mother-in-law told me I was going to miss this time. Now, I do, but I don't. I told her, I said, I agree. I'm going to miss my children. I love them dearly, but I am not going to miss the dirty clothes on the floor. I'm not going to miss waking up from a clean kitchen to a dirty kitchen. I am not going to miss the backpacks all over the floor and the friends sleeping over and waking up and going, who is here? What the heck? So there are moments that you're not, and we're looking at that departure piece, right? We're looking at, as parents, we're now preparing for their departure. They may be 18 years old, 17, juniors, seniors in high school. You're talking about, are they going to college? Are they going to a trade? Are they going to the workforce? Are they going to the military? What are they doing? What is the departure from the home going to be like?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a instant transition? Is it going to be a gradual transition? You know, what does that look like for you, for your child, and your child? They all need something different. One child may want to go across the country and go to school somewhere. The other one may want to stay at home and go to work. And the other one may want to go to the 2-year college, but get an apartment. Like, all of those departure pieces are going to look different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would actually add, Dr. Tanya, you know, these stages, there was research done by Ellen Galinsky, right? So these stages she developed from her research.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, I think the departure stage 6, to me, it's a little, I don't know if it exists. I love all of her other stages. I don't know if I would have named departure stage 6 as departure, because departure just like almost sounds like finality, right? You're departuring, right? Yet there's no such thing as departure from parenting. Like,
that is true.
You're doing it all the time till the day you die. Like, you are a parent, right? But I'm also thinking, like, in her sense, in her research, she may also be speaking to the more physical aspect of moving out, going to college, right? And how those duties transition. And with that, again, I want to highlight the cultural component. If we were going to say that there is a departure stage, right? For Muslim families, at least Pakistani Muslim families, departure is when you get married and you're given away. And even with boys, your son, there is no departure. You're bringing in your daughter-in-law.
Mhm.
So I think we got to open up and like talk a little bit about like how parenting looks in different cultures, which
Sure.
is what our next topic is going to be, the next two series of parenting in the trenches, right? Because again, as we said, once you hop on that roller coaster of parenting, there is
Once you're
no
on,
getting off.
no
There
getting
is
off.
no stop. You can
No.
get off.
No, there's no stop for that. That is for sure. And I agree, culturally the departure looks different. Agreed, and I've learned so much from you about that. And I love that you have shared that piece. That's the other thing that I love about our conversations, the guests that we bring on, because there is more than one parenting model to follow. There are some tried and true things that we know probably work for lots of models of parenting and cultures, but not everyone is the same. And so learning more about that is really helpful to a lot of parents to hear a variety of things. And even though maybe the son isn't leaving the home and the daughter is moving in and getting married, there's still an evolution of change. And so the roles are changing from just my son to now my son has a wife, an intimate partner. Like there's a lot of pieces that go along with that for parents that might be challenging. So it is still an evolution. It may not be a full departure out of the house. And really, you know,
And transition.
I think every parent tells their kids, you always have a place here. I think many parents tell their kids that you always have a place here. Now, whether or not they really want to live with you and you really want to live with them, but they'll always have a place there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that again, as we're kind of looping in, I think the sixth stage, if I were to revamp it a little bit and make it more inclusive, I would maybe the sixth stage would be like continued transitions, because those continue to happen, right?
Yeah.
And you have a lot of transitions in life which impact your parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, I think it's very important. You just made a really great point. Like, what does parenting look like in terms of your journey and evolving as in-law parenting, grandmother, grandfather parenting?
Yes.
Like when you, in terms of your own identity, take on an additional role, you're just not the mom and dad anymore. You are the mother and the father-in-law. You are the grandparent and grandmother, right? That's evolving with age too. How often, and this is very common in grandparents, they are the most gentle, kind souls to their grandkids. You look at them and you're like, was that my parent? Did I grow with this? Total 100, 360 degree shift, right?
Because that is an evolution of their age, right? And so at times when they were the younger parent, they were maybe working, running a household, managing it, doing all of those things. They didn't have time for all of that, as much comfort as they can give now. Now they're able to say, oh, the laundry can wait. I already got the groceries. The bills are paid. I don't have to work. I can just dote on you and just love you, and so it sort of evolves. And some of the things that were big rocks when the kids were littler, it's like the first child and the second child, and then the third child comes along. We're not as stringent with that as we were with the first one, right? So now they've sort of evolved with their age as well. So I know we're getting close to time here. My gosh.
Yes, we are.
Great conversation tonight. Thank you for everyone in the audience, Sharon, for joining us as well tonight. And Nick, all your great comments about parenting. I love them so much. You all are amazing parents and have great advice for parents. If they're just coming in and watching, pop in and look at these comments because they're great. They're great.
Yeah, and always catch our episodes. They're always on LinkedIn, on our YouTube channels, so you have access to this information. Forward it to loved ones, family members, co-workers. The information, again, we do this because we know there's a need. And for me specifically, I do this work clinically in my center, so to be able to push it out to a larger community, that's where my heart is. So with that, we'll be back, not next week, the week after that. We'll be back twice next month. And we are specifically going to talk about cultural perspectives in parenting.
I love it.
Because, I always put a little cultural spin to it, right? So as a cultural relational trauma expert, we're going to bring it to you from the parents who actually are going to tell their own lived experiences in parenting from different cultures. So next time, I think we're back in 2 weeks at 7 p.m. We'll love to see you guys. And then, hopefully let's figure out, Dr. Tanya, what we're doing next year for our podcast.
You bet.
All right, take care, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great night.